Support for this program is brought to you by listeners like you. Thank you. The Local Thread.
Hello and welcome to another episode of TPS Proud Out Loud. I'm Patty Mazer, Executive Director of Communications for Toledo Public Schools. And today we're going to be focusing on two very important topics that school districts, not only here in Northwest Ohio, but across the country, are dealing with more and more. And that is safety and security of our students at school and childhood trauma. We're going to start our conversation today by talking school safety and security. A top priority for school districts across the community, our region, and across the country is providing a safe and secure learning environment for students and a safe and secure work environment for staff. School leaders take the topic of safety and security very seriously, given some of the realities that we've seen play out over the years. 420 school shootings have occurred since the 1999 Columbine tragedy. In 2025, however, there was a decrease in the number of school shooting incidents. Those numbers dropped by 30% compared to 2024. However, already this year, we have seen 3 high-profile school shootings which have resulted in injury or death. I am proud to say that Toledo Public Schools has a Department of Public Safety, and we have the chief of the Department of Public Safety here with us today, Nancy Thompson. Hi.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Nancy is a TPS graduate, current chief of the Department of Public Safety. Tell us about your position and the role that your department plays within the district.
Sure. Like you said, I am the chief of the Department of Public Safety. I kind of moved up in rank, being a longtime employee of TPS. I started off in with the safety department as a campus protection officer. That is our non-law enforcement safety personnel that are stationed within our schools. And from there, I was trained to be a police officer, a school resource officer to be specific, and then from there moved up in rank to where I'm at today. So we constantly train our CPO staff on how to react in case of an emergency. We train our CPOs on how to de-escalate situations that involve student to student, staff with students, staff with staff, and how to deal with the public. So from that, we also train our school resource officers who are under my direction as well. Same scenario. We take lockdown training as a top priority. We train several times a year on the protocols involving lockdowns. We take all lockdowns serious. And I say that because in this day and age, we deal with swatting. That's becoming a thing throughout the country, not just locally. It is nationwide. And we train as though it's the real thing each and every time. So safety is our top priority.
And you say that as you never know if it's a prank call or if it is something that is serious and needs to be addressed. So every time a call comes into your department, you take it as this is for real and we must respond, and you have trained your staff to respond in the most appropriate way.
Absolutely.
When you talk about CPOs and SROs, so campus protection officers, school resource officers, how many CPOs do we have within the district and how many SROs?
We have approximately, I want to say 46 campus protection officers, the non-law enforcement staff. We also have 7 school resource officers, not including myself and my second in command, Lieutenant Kaiser. We also have a staff of weapons check or safety check people that help us in each and every morning to make sure that there's no contraband or any dangerous weapons brought into our buildings.
I've been with TPS for 19 years, and the changes that we have made within the district to ensure a safe and secure learning environment for students and work environment for staff. We've made some significant changes recently,
Absolutely.
including the mandatory weapons check.
Yes.
And that is at every high school every morning.
Absolutely.
And you have staff that comes in and trains for that. And that is something that people feel, oh, school's supposed to be a safe place. Well, right, we take these steps to make sure it remains a safe place.
Absolutely.
Talk about, you mentioned lockdowns. Let's talk about the different drills that are mandatory through the state of Ohio that we have to fulfill each year.
Sure. Toledo Public Schools, as well as many other districts, have implemented ALICE, right? Everybody has heard of that in one form or another. Some people call it run, hide, fight, and some people refer to it as ALICE, but it all means the same thing. What protocol do you take? What actions do you take to protect yourself in a active shooter and or intruder type situation? So we practice for that several times a day. I've actually been certified for it, and we train the trainer type situation. You were a part of that many years ago, and so we take that serious. So every year, we let the schools practice as often as they want, but then we come around and we implement a drill, and then we give a grade, a pass or fail grade to each building, whether it's high school or K-8. And we go over what was positive, what was negative, what we could do to improve, or let you know, kudos, it was perfect, right? And so we take that really serious.
And it's become almost secondhand because we still do tornado drills.
Absolutely.
We still do fire drills.
Yes.
And now we have to do these ALICE drills or lockdown drills just because of the way things in our world have changed. And as far as an ALICE drill or a lockdown situation, we have three different stages.
Yes.
Level 1, level 2, level 3.
Absolutely. And so, of course, level 1 is no one comes in, no one goes out, but business as usual otherwise, right? That means we hear that there's something in the area, but not close enough.
It's
right?
typically a neighborhood situation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Level 2 takes it a step further. It's still no one in, no one out, but we're going to restrict movement inside the building a little bit, meaning you go ahead and continue teaching, but we're not going to let you move about the building freely, meaning you just stay in your classroom. There's no class changes, no hall passes. You're kind of on alert, right? And then level 3 is the highest level of all, of course. That means something has penetrated the building, right? And to take necessary precautions, meaning you're locking your doors, you're moving away from the windows, you're turning off the lights, you're quiet. You hope to hear further instructions, depending on how real the threat is, right? Until you hear and this is how you remain, or based upon the information you've received, you may have to evacuate, right? So it all depends on the situation.
And again, we've trained for that. We've had situations where we've had to enact a lockdown and deal with upset parents and community and media and first responders, and it gets chaotic. But all of that is done as a preventative and proactive phase. Again, so we can keep our students and our staff safe.
Absolutely. I'd rather cause a short period of inconvenience, but at the same time, err on the side of caution,
Right.
right? And so we do, as a district, we do a good job of informing them of what has transpired, right? You don't always get the full picture. Sometimes we, as the safety department, don't have the full picture. And so as the situation unfolds, it may change. It may go from a 1 to a 3 in a blink of an eye. But the more you practice these things, we've had the real deals and we've had a lot of practices, it becomes second nature.
Correct. I think this year we've enacted, as all school districts across the state have had to do,
Absolutely.
a cell phone policy that students cannot have their cell phones during the day.
Yes.
And I think that has helped as far as students automatically, I got to call my mom. I got to let them know what's going on. And that can cause some confusion in a crisis situation. But let's talk about the positive impact that we have seen across the district with the cell phone free policies that we've enacted.
Absolutely. So I've been in the district for many, many years, and there is a tremendous difference between the incidents, certain types of incidents, since we've enacted the cell phone policy. It was very uncomfortable to initially implement, but it's been worth it. So what we have seen is the dramatic decrease on school threats, swatting, airdrop threats, organized fights, and on all of those things. What we have also noticed is the positive interaction that between the kids. You know, it used to be you walk in a cafeteria and everybody had their heads in their phones, right? Now you see them communicating with each other. Like what you and I went through in high school. We actually sat across from each other and talked to each other. We see a lot of that. We see a lot of games. Like at a school you can go and there's a game table and they might be building a puzzle at one table, playing Monopoly at another. And so there is such a positive impact implementing the cell phone policy has brought to the district.
And we do some assessments with students at the beginning of the year, and some assessments that talk about their mental health and their perception of themselves and such. And the responses came back so positive as far as no pressure to be on their phones, no pressure to interact with, and how students were feeling the engagement in class and with their peers. And the one thing that we noticed pretty much from the start of the school year is it's very loud in a high school. And it's because, as you said, kids are talking with each other. Students are saying how much more they enjoy it, but the teachers have really noticed a change in engagement in the kids. So what does a student do when they come in the morning with their cell phone? If they have their cell phone, what's the policy?
Sure. So our check-in procedures consist of the student walking in. They have a yonder pouch, which is the pouch that holds the cell phone, in front of staff. They lock that pouch. We make sure that the pouch is securely locked. And then they proceed on down the line to put the bags on the table. The bags go through a conveyor belt type situation. We make sure there's no dangerous weapons or contraband in that, and off they go.
And the nice thing about the Yonder bag, when we first announced we were doing this, there was so much chatter on social media. You are not taking my phone from me.
Yes.
The students keep possession of their phone throughout the day. They don't. They can leave it in their car. They can leave it at home. They can leave it in a locker.
Yes.
But with the Yonder bag, they still have their phone, and I think that is security for them. And then at the end of the day, they walk out and they tap the magnet. The magnet unlocks. They take the Yonder bag with them. They have their phone, and off they go.
Yes.
And there's been so very little interruption and issues with that. I applaud how your staff and how especially the high school staff have supported this initiative, and it was a state mandate, so it wasn't something that TPS just decided to do on their own. It was something that all school districts had
I'll
to
say
enact.
this. We got in front of it, and so it made it easier. And so we didn't just spring it on, the staff or spring it on the students. The students have the control. So by them being able to keep that pouch with them, right, and they're not forfeiting their phone, right? They're the keepers of it. It made all the difference in the world. So they knew it was coming. They knew it was coming. They knew it was coming. And so it made the process that much smoother. So the parents had a chance and the students had a chance to do some research online. What is this all about, right? And see how it works. There were plenty of videos out there.
Yes.
You can Google other districts that had already implemented this process. And I believe we really did a good job in how we implemented this. We got in front of it. Like it was mandated, but we were ahead of the game.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that was we visited Akron City Schools and because they have been doing this for several years and learned a lot from them, and they've been a great partner to us along with Yonder, the company, as far as helping us with that. So kudos to all. In the time we have left, what is the most important message you want students, parents, our community to know about the protocols and the safety and security measures
Absolutely.
that we take?
So, like I said before, my department takes the safety and the security of each building, its campus, the people that visit, as well as the staff there and the students. That's our number one priority. We're there to be a help and not to be feared, and our line of communication is always open, right? I'm a product of TPS. My family went to TPS. My kids, now my grandkids, I take it serious. And if I'm comfortable enough with my family being there, I'm here to tell you that you should feel comfortable as well. And if the road is not so smooth for you, give us a call, right? We will help work that out for you because everyone has the right to feel safe.
That's a perfect way to explain the role of your officers in your department and the support you provide. Thank you for being with us today. And we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to TPS Proud Out Loud. I'm Patty Mazer, Executive Director of Communications for Toledo Public Schools, and we're going to continue our conversation and talk about now childhood trauma and the impact that it can have on a young person's education. The impact might surprise you. Childhood trauma is defined as a deeply distressing experience or event or series of events that negatively impacts a child's physical or emotional safety. Trauma can range from physical abuse, neglect, violence, severe loss, and can cause lasting physical and mental health issues. Childhood trauma in Northwest Ohio is a prevalent issue, with our region experiencing higher rates of child abuse and neglect compared to the average across Ohio. According to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, by the age of 16, 2/3 of children in the United States have experienced a potentially traumatic event. That could include physical or sexual abuse, a natural disaster, the sudden or violent loss of a loved one, a serious accident or life-threatening illness, or military family-related stress. Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs, contributes to a host of challenges that can follow an individual well into adulthood. Toledo Public Schools and school districts across Northwest Ohio and beyond have dedicated teams of professionals who are committed to preserving and improving the health and well-being of students and their families. They are also there to help those who are dealing with a traumatic situation, trauma that occurs most likely outside of school, but often finds its way into the classroom, and that's where an impact can be found. I'm joined by Caitlin Zazda, which rhymes with Mazda, so it was easy to remember. And Caitlin is a school counselor at one of our elementary schools. Tell us what it means to be a school counselor at an elementary school.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I wanted to clarify that I am actually a school counselor at 2 elementary schools. Okay. So I split my time between 2 wonderful school buildings that have many complex needs, and the buildings are very different in terms of the student population and their needs. But trauma is certainly something I see in both of my school buildings. As a school counselor, I work closely with kids. I tell kids I am here to help kids when kids are sad, whether it is about something at home, something at school, when students are struggling to get along with friends and classmates. I am there as a supportive adult that will help them in those situations. I don't do discipline. I make that very clear to students that I don't do anything within trouble. I'm just here to help. And so that looks like some individual counseling. I do brief solution-based counseling. And when it is apparent to me that a student needs more than brief solution-based counseling, that is when I am referring students and families to our embedded health partners, and also providing resources for mental health agencies outside as well, if that would serve a particular family better. But I'm referring when it is apparent that the situation is beyond my scope.
Gotcha. It's, again, we see students 6.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, 180 days a year. So your work can only go so far. But I would imagine in many cases your work is the first step in maybe understanding trauma in a family. Mm-hmm. So talk about, you mentioned the PBIS program and the framework and the tiered steps and framework that uses and how that impacts your work and the work you do with your students.
Oh, absolutely. So this is from House Bill 318. This was something that Governor Kasich had signed in 2018. And so this is a framework that we've been using for some time now. And it really is, it's trauma informed because it's all about improving student behavior and outcomes, but in a way that's very supportive of students, especially students with trauma. So it's very restorative. It's preventative. It's also restorative. Its focus is not punitive. So certainly there are consequences for students' actions, but the consequences are very fair, they're very clear, they're very consistent, and they also have to do with choice. So choice is something that many students with trauma don't have or have not had. So again, this framework for working with students is very trauma informed, and within the framework, in Tier 1 interventions, we do lots of preventative work. So lots of classroom guidance. I spend a lot of time going into classes, and I love that. Once upon a time, I was a high school English teacher for 11 years. And so I love getting back into the classroom and working with kids and teaching lessons. So I do that a lot. We do conflict resolution. In fact, that was a lesson I did today with my spring 6th graders. we talk about empathy. We talk about how our words matter. We talk about so many things. And these are interventions for all students, really for all people. Like, these are good skills that we learn and that we practice. And for a lot of students, that's all they need. But then we do have some Tier 2 students that, are displaying behaviors, and perhaps they're receiving some referrals for their choices. And so then they have more targeted interventions. And then, of course, there's a Tier 3 as well. But I spend a lot of time working with kids, either in the classroom or one-on-one, in small groups. So lots of ways to serve kids.
You and I had a discussion last year, and you were telling me about how your program and your work, if you see a student as a kindergarten and they keep coming back to the school that you are at, how you build upon the program that you deal with and that you work with. And the one thing that you said is you tell students to, if there's an issue, if they have an issue, find an adult that they can trust and talk to. And if they go to that adult, or they find an adult and they find that that adult isn't there for them, what are they supposed to do? Find another adult.
Exactly.
I loved that, and that has stuck with me. So is that something that you start with the youngest of our learners with?
So, and this is for all students, but certainly in work, when we're trauma informed and we're working with kids who've experienced trauma, it's so important to promote communication with trusted adults and to show that, we are those trusted adults, but also encourage kids to talk to family members, talk to their teachers, their school nurse, their counselor, their principals. It's so important to, if a child is experiencing something that is upsetting them, hurting them, that is distressing in any way, to always turn to that trusted adult. And so we talk about that very early on, right? With our youngest students, and we establish who are the safe adults, who is your trusted adult. So that's already there, and it's easier then to remember. Oh, I know I can talk to my principal, or I can talk to my school counselor.
I would imagine that there are times that a student comes in and maybe the student had been at school for 2 or 3 days, and the guardian, the parent, comes in and says, hey, my student hasn't been here because we lost a grandparent. So you are aware then of that trauma, or there was an accident, or there was a fire and we're now displaced. So you know about that and you can help that student, so you are aware. But how often do you find students that you notice there's something not right, they're acting differently, they're acting out, and you find that there's trauma that you weren't aware of?
Well, I would say that, that happens all the time. And really, when we see students acting out, it's generally a sign of trauma. And that kind of goes back to the science behind trauma and how it affects our
Brain
brains.
development. Okay.
So we have, different parts of our brains, and, we have the amygdala that senses danger. And, that's what it's doing. It's scanning our environment for threats. And when it senses one, then chemicals are released in the brain, and we have different hormones, so like cortisol and adrenaline, and those things get pumping, and it triggers the fight or flight reaction. That's what it's supposed to do. And so and it also shuts down other parts of the brain because, again, the body is focusing on that threat and getting away from that threat. And so, students I see students all the time in that state where maybe they're completely shut down. They put their heads down. They won't do anything. They're just turned off. But also, many times there are students in that fight mode where they're aggressive, they're yelling, they're physically fighting. All the time I see students in fight or flight. And once we can kind of come back down to baseline and I can help students calm, I do a lot of that. And so helping them to regulate, we can start to talk, and we can oftentimes, get to trauma. It leads back to trauma. And the thing is, even if students aren't actively in a traumatic situation, if they were in the past, that still has affected the way the brain has developed. So, if the part of the brain that senses danger is like hypervigilant and just doing its thing, it shuts down other parts of the brain. So we have like the hippocampus, for instance. That's the part of the brain that's all about like memories, storing memories. And so it's going to be hard to learn if that part of the brain is kind of shut down. And actually, research has shown that like it can be literally smaller. It will decrease in size because of trauma, because that part of the brain isn't activated the way it should be. And so that affects the ability to learn, retain information. It could have a profound effect on someone's cognition, and just ability to learn in one's life. Then there's the prefrontal cortex. So that's the part of the brain that is thinking about consequences. And already that part of the brain isn't fully developed until our mid-20s. But still, when the danger center is hypervigilant, the prefrontal cortex is not. It's slowing down. And so students, they're not able to think logically and to reason or to think about consequences. Like, is this a good idea that I respond this way? Am I sure I want to? That ability to think isn't there.
Do you see that? Do you get the referrals then from a teacher who might be seeing a student acting out, or you know a student and you see them in the hallway acting out, and then all of that comes together? You find something that is triggered a student. Mm-hmm. Do you contact the parent or the guardian? Or if you get the student to talk and you're like, whoa, this might be beyond what we can do here at school, what are the steps?
Well, it happens all different ways. Sometimes teachers do. Teachers are right there. They're in the front lines. And so they'll see a student who is being aggressive or again, who's shutting down. They'll see signs and they will refer. But other times, and so maybe I might be able to step in, again, help them regulate. We do deep breathing exercises. We have so many different techniques to, get that prefrontal cortex going so they can regulate. And then we can go from there in a productive way. Sometimes, though, I get them after the fact where they've already blown up. They've already yelled. There's already been a fight. And so I'm stepping in, still doing the same things, helping them to regulate. But then there's usually a lot more there.
Yeah, sure.
But absolutely, I talk with parents all the time. That's so important to have dialogue.
And that's important for parents to know that your school counselor is a trusted advocate,
yes,
support system. If there's a question or a situation that you want to talk about, feel free to reach out directly to your counselor.
Yes, please.
Thank you
so much.
This has been, you taught me things that I didn't know. So there you go. Thank you. And Caitlin, appreciate you being here. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our third segment of this week's TPS Proud Out Loud, and we are now joined by Shiloh Cahill, the coordinator of school nursing for Toledo Public Schools. School nurses serve as a crucial safe point of contact for students, often acting as the first line of defense and recognizing adverse childhood experiences and initiating support or referrals to counselors and mental health professionals. And again, Toledo Public Schools and districts across the area have a dedicated team that work to preserve the health and well-being of our students. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And as a school nurse, when you were in one of the schools, what was your typical day like? Was there a typical day?
There's no typical day. We see everything from injuries on the playground. We see children having just acute illnesses like coughs and colds and that kind of thing. We also see a lot of mental health going on. So kids that are anxious, kids that are feeling panicked, feeling upset, and we're able to be a safe person for them in the building.
So a student comes to school and doesn't want to take a test or has negative words with a classmate and doesn't want to be in that class. The teacher might say, oh, you don't feel well, you want to go down to the nurse. So he comes down, she comes down and says, oh, I have a headache, oh, I have a stomach ache. What does the school nurse do?
So we'll start with just a physical assessment and asking them, how are you today? What's been going on? How long has it been going on? And what led up to you feeling this way? You know, take a temperature, do an assessment. If their stomach hurts, listening to their stomach. What did they eat today? Going through all the different things to find out if there is something medical going on. And if there's not, then that kind of opens the door to, oh, well, what is going on today? Is anything making you sad or making you worried? Did you know that when you are upset that it can cause actually physical symptoms in your body? And your belly can hurt and your chest can hurt and you can get a headache. So is something going on that might be causing you to feel that way? And when you are a trusted person that student has been to see, they will often open up to you and let you know what's going on.
So you wear the hat also of detective, and
Yes.
you find out and you pinpoint what's going on. And I think it's important to know that the nurses become another trusted adult within the building, and over the school year and maybe over the years, you see the same students coming back.
Yep.
So you get to know the family and you get to know the student, and you can sometimes disseminate between, is it something that is medical and, oh, we do need to call mom, or if there's something more. So
Yeah.
talk about the steps that the nurses take in, okay, I found that it's not a medical issue, it's anxiety, it's emotional. What do you, as the nurse, what do you do to help the student get past that?
So, well, I think you're right that they become a trusted person in the building and they know these kids and they know the families. So you can see when something is different, when something new is going on with your kiddos. So if I find that a student does have something going on, we're absolutely involving the family. We are utilizing and partnering with our school counselors, with our embedded mental health partners, with our school-based health centers, also have behavior services that they offer as well. So connecting them with the right people to be able to take care of them.
Right. And again, that goes back to a good point, the additional support services that we have built within Toledo Public Schools, the mental health partners, and our school staff can be so much to a family or to a student, but then sometimes you need that extra support.
Yeah, those wraparound services are so important for our kids and our families.
And we talk about the whole child. That has become the buzzword through the state of Ohio and the Department of Education. So that includes not only the physical aspect of a student's health and well-being, but the mental aspect of that as well. So in your time as a school nurse, how have you seen those changes take place?
Well, I would say that for school nursing, the whole child has been our center, for a very long time. So the fact that education is also saying whole child now, I mean, we just go hand in hand. So I'm loving seeing that. And school nurses definitely are looking at the whole child when they come down. Our school-based health centers also have a whole child model. So I feel really comfortable and confident referring our families to them because I know they're going to be well taken care of with that same whole child model.
And the school-based health clinics are at each of our comprehensive high schools.
That's correct.
But the services are, again, open to all of our families. So let's talk about Wade High School. If there's a student maybe at Raymer who is having some issues, it's okay for you to call the parent, the guardian, and suggest that they take the student to the health center.
Yes.
Which is great. So in your work, you talked about the Childhood Abuse Prevention Program, or CAP.
Yes.
And your connection with the school counselors. Talk about CAP, and here I thought it was something that you as a staff member went through as far as training, but this is training that is done with students.
That's correct. So usually the school nurses and the counselor will partner together and either do lessons together or they will each do different classrooms, but they go into the classroom and there's a whole program that we go through. So based on their age, so it's age appropriate for each grade, the signs to look for so that they know what abuse is and so that they can recognize it and be able to get help if they ever experience anything like that.
And it goes back to the idea of finding that trusted adult.
Right.
And it's something that, again, we don't think of as everyday life, but the impact of childhood trauma can have on a school and on a school day. And we've seen that over the years through TPS and different situations. How do you feel the nurses, the role that they play in the everyday interactions with students? How do you see their role as important as the teacher?
Absolutely. If you are not healthy, you can't learn. If your basic needs are not met, how can you learn when you have a headache, have a stomach ache? I mean, how well does anybody function in their job when they are not feeling well? So to have someone there that can help, and with chronic health conditions as well, diabetes, asthma, seizures, these students are able to be seen for their chronic health conditions, to stay healthy. It's someone that can check in with them regularly. Every day with some of our asthma kids and our diabetics, so they are able to keep them healthy. They see trends. They can reach out to the families when a blood sugar's been high for a few days, reaching out home to see, let's figure out what's going on here. And to be a liaison with the family and the physician and the school, to be the person that is able to put that all together so that the child is getting the best care that they can get. When you're healthy, you learn better and you stay in school. Often in the past, the child would be home not feeling well. If they were having an asthma exacerbation, they might not feel well enough to come to school. But when the school nurse is there, they're able to treat them throughout the day and they're able to stay in school and be able to learn.
And that was something, because we did have someone from the school-based clinic come in and talked about saved seat time.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense, being the fact that you can just go maybe across the street or down the hall to the clinic if you're not feeling well. But the importance of keeping kids in school and how this all wraps around each other. Talk about if parents know at the beginning of the school year that their student is diabetic, asthmatic, all those different chronic things, how important it is for them to share that update with the school nurse.
I would say it's vitally important. And your school nurse should be reaching out to you as well if they know that your child has a chronic illness. So it's important to be able to get information from the physician so we know how to care for the student if there's an emergency. It's important that the nurse is able to educate the teacher so they know what to do in the classroom if there's an emergency, so that everybody who has contact with that student is able to recognize signs, for example, of a high blood sugar, a low blood sugar, what does a seizure look like for that student, and be able to react so to keep the student safe.
And we have, even with our youngest learners, we have the traveling medical vans and programs that come in to see our students, because our nurses deal with however many kids in a building at a time, and so we might need that extra support. I always find it interesting that we find sometimes a diagnosis of diabetes for the first time through the school, or a student who struggled with seeing the board, the whiteboard, and all of a sudden they do an eye exam and they find the student needs glasses. How important are those wraparound services in that respect that we see that build students' support, or their build them up as far as their achievement level?
Right. Well, if you can't see the board, it's really hard to learn. If you can't see the words on the page, it's really hard to understand the directions, right? So school nurses do hearing and vision screenings and are able to refer, and then we partner with our school-based health center, and they come do outreach for vision and for dental services. So I think our families often have trouble with transportation, with insurance. A lot of providers do not accept Medicaid, and we have quite a few families that are on Medicaid, and they are able to come in and be seen. Also, a lot of our families, maybe they can't take a sick day. Maybe they don't get paid if they don't go to work that day. And so if we can see them at school, it saves the parent time and money from being able to work. It saves the student from being out of school, and then the student is able to get the services they need and be able to continue learning.
So it goes beyond just the childhood trauma. Maybe it's family trauma because the parent feels, oh my goodness, I know my student is sick, but if I don't go to work today. So we are providing, again, the support to the family as far as making sure that the student is taken care of and their needs are being met. What's the important thing for parents to know if there is a situation that they are concerned about in letting someone at the school know, that so you can keep an eye out for those trauma triggers, let's call them? What's something that parents might come in and talk about?
Well, I think that communication on that is the most important thing. And sometimes there does need to be discretion around that. I mean, not everybody wants to share the trauma that's going on in their lives, but knowing that your counselor, your nurse, they are a safe person to talk to. They are truly just there to help. You know, if for example, if there was a fire you had mentioned earlier, and they're sleeping in a hotel, you know, nobody's sleeping good, maybe giving that student grace that day and letting them lay down in the nurse's office and take a nap. I mean, something as simple as that can be so helpful and kind and help them get through the day.
And kindness is so, it's a word that we use so often, but it's such a foundational aspect of education and the services that we provide to our students and the support. How do you see a student, if a student comes in and isn't feeling well or has something that's going to be a trigger, when you help them work through that, what does that feel like for a school nurse? Is that a success?
Oh my goodness.
And then you go and maybe you have to refer to the counselor and you guys work as a team. What does that look like? What's success for that?
Absolutely, that sounds like success when you're able to help a child move through a difficult moment, a difficult situation, when you're able to collaborate with the people in your building and be able to support that student how they need to. I mean, so much of this is very individual to the student and their personality and their needs and what is going on with them. So being able to collaborate together to help move that student through that difficult situation, feel that is success. I mean, that's the whole reason that we're here, to help them be able to learn how to take care of themselves. And a lot of that is mental health. Life is really hard, you know, and they learn that at a young age. A lot of our kiddos do. So being able to help them put some tools in their toolbox to be able to eventually help themselves be able to live.
Yeah. And that's so important, giving the student the tools that they need that they can build on year after year after year to be successful as a student, after school, to be a good friend to someone, to be successful as they go through their educational process and go on after that. What is the one thing you want to leave parents with and students with as far as advice when it comes to trauma and asking for help? Sometimes I think that's the hardest part.
It's really hard. I think that knowing that there are people in your building who want to help you. That is the whole reason that they're there. They want to be a person that you trust. They will care for you. They will be an advocate for you and help you to get what you need to move through a hard situation. No situation is too hard. We are able to help you through whatever you're going through. And if you are willing to share so that we can come in and be a support, we're really happy to do that.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is ask for help and know that you're going to get it. Thank you so much, and appreciate the work that you do with your nurses and how you, again, keep our students healthy and safe and help them prepare for what comes next.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And that's the end of another episode of TPS Proud Out Loud. I want to thank my guests, Nancy Thompson, Caitlin Zazda, and Shiloh Cahill. I also want to thank you for being part of this week's episode. Join me again next time on TPS Proud Out Loud.
The Local Thread is a production of WGTE Public Media. Episodes can be heard weeknights at 7 on FM 91 or anytime at WGTE.org.
The views and opinions expressed in The Local Thread are those of the hosts of the program and its guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of WGTE Public Media.